When we got our first house in Airbnb, it was a big house that can host up to 12 people and was very profitable. So then we got a second house, and this time was a small house. And we thought, well, if it worked for this house and we're making money, then with this new house it should work too. Well, we were wrong. When we had 100% occupancy, our profit was only about a couple £100. And then is when we noticed that we had to have two different strategies depending on the size of the house. So what I would do is explain what's the different strategy that we have for small houses and for big houses, and why they have to be different for them to be profitable. So I'll start with the big houses. The big house, because it was so large, we could charge a lot for a weekend stay with a large group of people, and basically one weekend stay could cover the whole of the lease payment that we had on this house. So the lease payment was high, but the price that we put on the weekends was very, very high. Then if we had the second weekend booked in that month, cover most of the variable expenses. The variable expenses generally depend on the number of bookings that we had, which were the cleaning, the linen, the maintenance that we had to do, and the cost of just running the house every check-in and check-out. Then the following 2 weekends, if we had them booked, it meant all profit for us. Now with the small house, it happened something different. The small house, of course, the lease was much less than this big house. However, because of the size of the house, we couldn't charge so much on the weekends. So we needed 2 weekends to cover the lease and fixed cost of the house. What we didn't take into account though was that those variable expenses basically were about 50% of the revenue that we got from the booking. In the big house, however, the variable cost was between 10 and 20% of the revenue that we got for a weekend booking. In here, in the big house, it's okay when we have a high turnover, because the percentage of the variable and operating expenses are very low compared to the revenue. With small houses, we noticed that no, we had to change the strategy. And now what we do is, small houses, we make a minimum of at least a week-long booking. That means that the revenue that we receive for each booking is higher. We increase the revenue that we receive for each booking. The proportion of the variable and operating expenses for each booking was reduced again to about 10-20%. The downside is that the number of bookings that we get is much smaller. Long holidays are more rare than those short weekend holidays. So for us to reduce that risk of not getting a week booked, what we do is we have the 7 days minimum only for 1 month and a half in the future. And those bookings that are made within 1 month and a half, we allow them to book for 2 or 3 nights, depending on how much we are charging per night. And that's how we adjust the minimum number of nights and the minimum price that we can set, and how we combine those. If we increase the price per night, then we can reduce the minimum number of nights. If we reduce the price per night, then we have to increase the minimum number of nights. Okay, let me pause the video just to explain a bit better what I tried to say here. And to aid with the explanation, I will show this graph and talk about it. You can see in the y-axis the number of nights, and then some diagonal lines in the middle of the graph which indicate the price that we choose per night. And then on the y-axis will be the result, which will be the revenue per booking. So for this example, the cost that we have per booking is normally about £100. And if we want to maintain it as 20% of the revenue that we do per booking, then it means that each booking that we have, it has to be at least £500 on revenue. So it means that anything on the green area meets our criteria. And just to give a quick example, because of the cost per booking that we have is about £100. If we have 7 night bookings at £80, our revenue would be of £560, which is above our threshold, and that's why we try to have a week-long booking in this case. However, if it's a bigger house and we can charge more, let's say it's a medium-sized house and we can charge £150 per night. If we choose 4 nights as minimum, our revenue will be about £650, and that again meets our criteria. I hope that makes things clearer. I'll carry on with the video now. So that the variable expense per booking doesn't exceed 25% of the revenue that we expect for each booking. And that's it for today.